Good evening, guys. I decided to take the evening. The wife is gone. Most of the kiddos are gone. So I'm gonna play around with the old diesel Blazer. The starter, I killed it, I think, by cranking it because it got air in the fuel system. And with it being an old-timey diesel Blazer, you have to crank and crank and crank the engine to get the fuel out of the fuel, or the air out of the fuel system. It's got an old mechanical fuel pump. So I did that until I killed the starter, and then I thought better of it after I'd already killed the starter. So I put an electric fuel pump on it, and I went and got a new starter. I'm using the Redneck Limousine as my workbench. Got me a new starter. This is the newer style, the gear reduction style. So it's the style that's for like the 96.5 liter diesel engine instead of the 6.2 that one has. But they're completely interchangeable. It's just these things, I just want the gear reduction, and it's not as high an amperage draw. So I told them that I was working on a 93 Chevy K3500 and got this starter. So one thing that you always need to do when you're putting starters on these old 6.2s and 6.5s, there's this little bolt right here, this little stud right here, and there's a little dinky tab that goes from this to the side of the engine block. Always, always, always use that. If you don't use that, these things make enough torque, they can break your starter bolts and even break a chunk off of the block, just a little ear, and then you'll have a perfectly good engine that you can't start. So always use that. So hopefully today we'll have the old diesel Blazer running again. This is my fake M1009. It's actually a civilian Blazer because I wanted the air conditioner and I wanted the power windows and locks, but I wanted the diesel engine. So instead of getting an M1009, oh, and also one good point, M1009s, the military version of the diesel Blazer, they have a 24 volt starting system, I believe, and I didn't want to mess with any of that. I wanted all just straight 12 volt. So that's what this one has, straight 12 volt, but it still has the 6.2 diesel. I've kind of gotten bored with the 6.2 though, so stay tuned, and I'm going to be making an announcement about what we're going to be doing in here. That 6.2 is going to be coming out. Stay tuned. I also have a sad announcement to make. One of my helpers didn't know that you can't use a brush at the car wash to clean off the... See all these scratches? It pains me. To clean off the mud. I went driving in the mud when we were in Montana, and when we got back home, I took the truck to the car wash and brought one of my helpers and told the helper that I'd be washing one side, or rinsing one side down and then rinsing the other side, and then I'd come back and rinse all the mud off. Well, this particular helper wanted to help and grabbed the brush while I was on the other side of the truck and went to town getting the mud off. That's what happens. So my beautiful paint job is scratched up on the driver's side. It's going to take some work. I've talked to a few people, and some of them say that it's salvageable. It's going to take some sanding, and a couple people said that it's not, that it'll have to be repainted, at least these two panels here. So I don't know, I'll try it. I'm going to try to do some sanding and polishing to see if I can fix it. Otherwise, truck's going back to the paint shop, which would be a sad day because I'm sure thoroughly enjoying driving this thing. And I'll show you another reason why I'm thoroughly enjoying driving this thing. Right down here, see that little guy? I just installed a sway bar in this thing. With this thing being so tall, with those big wheels and just having the extra weight, it was no fun to drive. It felt like the back end was kind of wagging the front, and so it was no fun to drive on the freeway. So I figured I wouldn't be out too much. I paid a guy $125 to buy the whole sway bar setup with all the brackets, all the bolts, and I installed it at his house when I bought it and drove home, and it was amazing. The difference is immediate. Like, it went from being kind of miserable to drive over 70 miles an hour to, without even thinking, I was going 85 miles an hour with a truck this big. And I looked down at the speedometer and realized, oh, I gotta back it off. It's so much better. And I'm gonna experiment for a while. I'll drive like this for a while. I may end up going with an aftermarket sway bar. They make some that have an even higher spring rate. I don't know. I'll do some experimenting. But with every one of these little details that I finish up on the truck, I'm falling more and more in love with it. It's a load of fun to drive now, and it gets attention everywhere I go, which I kind of like. So, stay tuned. There's still more to come on the Redneck Limousine, and over on my fake M1009, I've got another announcement that'll be coming here in a week or two.